Thanks for everybody for joining. We're going to discuss today a little bit about who else some innovations are. We're a Salesforce partner, been a Salesforce partner for a number of years, based in LA and focused entirely on the United States. But we brought in a couple panelists here today to discuss streamlining client onboarding in financial services cloud. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So just a little bit about the agenda today, kind of about what we do and the difference between us and how we can help out. We'll introduce the team. We'll go over a typical roadmap for wealth management and banking, and then also a client lifecycle and onboarding, and then we'll go over a demo and then do a Q&A session as well. Okay, let me go ahead and proceed. Okay, sorry. A little bit about SMI. So our Fins expertise, a little bit about, so we basically, the way we structure all of our work is we start with ex-bankers or wealth managers who've worked in Salesforce for a number of years. And then that's how we scope all our projects out in order to have bankers talking to bankers, essentially. So most of our folks have Big Five experience. So coming from boutique consulting companies or Big Five, like myself, I came from IBM. We have folks from Accenture, Deloitte, et cetera. Everyone's onshore and highly certified. We also have a large number of free pre-built accelerators and unmanaged package that we provide for clients as well. A little bit about my background. I did 10 years, based in Los Angeles, born and raised in LA, 10 years in financial services, worked in finance, worked in a engineering capacity. After business school at USC, I went on to management consulting, and then we've started this about 4.5 years ago. Suhel, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Can everybody see me and hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
So just a little bit about myself. I've worked in Salesforce over 10 years and have deep expertise in financial services as a business domain, and I've worked on Salesforce. So that's the intersection that I worked in. And most of my career I've been in consulting with Capgemini and Accenture. Back to you.
Robert, if you can join as well, Robert Tompkins, yep. We have former Salesforce principal manager.
Yes, yeah, Robert Tompkins. I been working with the platform since 2008. It's quite a few years, and I've done everything from back in the day having to write from scratch stuff to the industry verticals and all the different cloud, sales, service, marketing, and analytics. And I've touched over 100 or so implementations of Salesforce when I worked at the company for 8 years. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Moving on to this slide is for Suhel, excuse me. So Suhel.
Yeah, so before we get into the actual details of how Salesforce will help in client onboarding, I wanted to show everybody an overall picture of what we talk about when we talk about a roadmap and how we tailor this roadmap very specifically to financial services. So on this roadmap, and I'm not going to go too detailed because it will take another session for us to go into this detail, but at a high level, you will see this roadmap talks about the journey of a client, of a typical client, right? From the time that they get introduced to the bank or the wealth management firm, from starting as a lead to a prospect and then client onboarding, and then actually managing the assets for the clients inside Salesforce, and then doing a servicing and supporting the client growth. So this is just a high level, big picture. There's a lot of detail here, but at a high level, if you see, each one of these blue chevrons has a bunch of smaller boxes under it, which basically describes what we do in each one of these areas. And each one of these areas is specifically supported by one of the products from Salesforce. So where you see this FSC box, it tells you that FSC supports a lot of these features. MuleSoft is primarily for integration. And wherever you see that golden box, that's where you need a partner, that we recommend that you should work with a partner to get those features enabled and configured for your particular use cases. There's also some Salesforce products such as Experience Cloud and Service Cloud that also come into the picture. But this is sort of an overlay of a business process with a technology overlay, specifically Salesforce on it. And I think, Christina, while as I'm speaking, if there are any questions, please monitor and let me know if there are any questions that come through. Let's go to the next slide, Nima. So this is, again, the similar view that was presented in the previous case, but here I wanted to focus specifically on the onboarding, which is the second piece of it. And we will talk about onboarding not only from a client perspective, but also from an account perspective, because there are key differences between account onboarding and client onboarding. And sometimes these terms get used interchangeably, but they're not the same. Let's go to the next slide, Nima. So this is an important slide. I wanted to talk about this because a lot of times when we as SMI talk to the clients, there are a lot of different perspectives on what client onboarding means, what account onboarding means, and where does it get started. So there are two large big picture patterns that are utilized in the industry. The first one is where your CRM, in this case Salesforce, is the system of record, and you want to initiate the client onboarding from within the system. So you would create the client in the system, you would then create accounts in the system in Salesforce, and at the end of that, you would integrate with a system of record. So if you are opening accounts for brokerage or investment accounts, you probably have a custodian that you need to integrate with. So you would, in this case, you would take the data from Salesforce and push it into the custodian systems, and it gives you a single pane of glass within Salesforce, and all of the integration is done behind the scenes by a partner like us, and you would not notice the difference if you're working, would not have to swivel chair into your custodian systems, such as Pershing, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, and all of those systems. Similar for core banking system as well as loan origination systems. The key difference here is the approach. And this is something that we advise our clients upfront about. How should you structure your processes so that folks start in Salesforce and then the data ends up in one of those systems. And to the right of that, you'll see a dotted box. The reason for that is once the data is in your custodial systems or your, excuse me, loan systems, you would need to manage and maintain the data. Excuse me 1 second. Oftentimes, what we have seen is a lot of folks end up spending a lot of time keeping the two systems in sync, and they would have to make an address change. They would go to the custodial systems or the bank systems, and then they will have to swivel into Salesforce and make the same updates. Otherwise, your system of your CRM activities get out of sync, whether it's an address, whether it's your phone number, or it could be important client updates, such as updates on balances or any transactions that happen on these external systems. So the dotted line indicates that there is a way for us through customizations and building integrations to keep these two systems in sync. And this is key for those folks who don't want to do these swivel chair activities. The second pattern which you see, and a lot of folks have started building those patterns, is if you go to somebody like a Schwab or TD Ameritrade or Fidelity or FIS, They will say, oh, we have a Salesforce plugin for you, and you can utilize the Salesforce plugin. But what they don't explain is that in that case, your system of record becomes that particular system, and all the initiation of the data happens in those third-party systems, whether it's your custodian system, whether it's your core banking system or a loan system. So in those cases, you would onboard your clients and accounts in those systems, and then those apps will push the data into CRM. So in those cases, CRM becomes more like a read-only view of the data that is in your other systems. And again, in this case, there can be a bidirectional sync that is established between those two systems, but the key difference is where do folks initiate these account opening or client onboarding activities? I don't know if there are any questions. If they're not, then we can move on.
I think the best way to do that would be to write it in the chat if there are any questions on this.
Yeah,
if not,
that would be great. Like if folks can write in the chat if there are any questions, because I'm not able to see what is coming through.
Sure, we'll let you know. So,
Let's move on to the next. So this is, excuse me, I apologize for the cough that I'm getting. I wanted to spend a little bit of time, additional time, on what are the key differences that we see between these two types of onboardings, because multiple times client onboarding and account onboarding or account opening are sort of used interchangeably. In this case, when we talk about, excuse me, pardon me. When we talk about client onboarding, we're specifically talking about establishing the client profile in Salesforce or any of these systems. So typically what happens in most of the companies is their systems, you would have a profile of a client which describes their name, address, phone number, etc., etc. And then there are accounts that get attached to it. And for example, you could have a client, let's just say Robert, and Robert could have, when we onboard Robert, we would do all the necessary checks and balances that are needed to onboard a particular client onto the system. And when Robert needs to open a 401k account or an investment account or a loan account, there's an additional processing that has to happen, which would include things such as suitability checks, which would include KYC, and in case of managed or unmanaged agreements, there are IMAs, investment management agreements, or investment policy statements that need to be signed on. That is a distinct and different activity in Salesforce versus just opening a client profile. And we will talk about it. We'll go through the Financial Services Cloud, and I'll show you how clients and accounts are related there. And the other difference that we have to understand is that Salesforce is a client-centric system in that sense that everything in Salesforce resides around a client, which is the modern way of looking at things. So you would have Robert, and under Robert, you would have all the accounts that Robert owns. And Robert could be part of a household. And you would be able to see within Financial Services Cloud a holistic picture of Robert and his household, including all the balances that are rolled up, the AUM at a household level or at a party level. But most of the custodial systems that are out there, they are very account centric. So there's no concept of household or a client. So I, as Suhel, could have 5 accounts at Fidelity. Each one of them is titled differently. Each one has a different address on it. I mean, normally they're the same, but it is possible that you would move and the address would get updated on one account and not on the other one. And all the entitlements are very, very different at a financial account level versus at a client level. Versus the paradigm that we have in Salesforce, which is everything is on a client-centric basis. So if you make an update to address on a client, it would automatically, or through a process, update all these. Sorry, if you make an account change at a client level, it would then propagate to all the accounts that would be associated with that client. A classic example is phone numbers. For my phone number changes, I have to call my custodian and get it updated on all the accounts, versus in Salesforce, I would update it in one place and it would automatically get updated on all the accounts that are associated with that. So I wanted to make sure that distinction is very clear, as historically speaking, all of these investment management companies have to deal with this type of account maintenance issues, whether it's phone changes, address changes, beneficiary changes, or any instructions, standing instructions that need to be applied. They can be managed at a client level in Salesforce versus at an account level. And it reduces a lot of overhang or overhead on maintaining and updating these systems. A lot of operational staff these days is dedicated to this type of activity, where it's simply they are keying and rekeying the data in multiple different systems. So that's one key concept difference between client onboarding and account onboarding. And in most of the RIA and wealth management firms, they will use a Salesforce as well as a backend custodial system, where they would have to then manually keep those two systems in sync, because that's how they've operated. And they would, and it's not a bad thing. However, what it does is it doesn't allow you to leverage the full capabilities of financial services cloud or the full capabilities of a CRM or a client relationship management system. And that's why we look at financial services cloud as a key differentiator in this area. And the last point that I want to make is about the integration of these applications that happens between these custodial systems or the bank systems or loan system, loan origination systems or servicing systems with a system, client CRM, such as financial services cloud. Most of the times when we go to the second paradigm that was discussed earlier, the second option where the clients are onboarded onto the third-party systems, there's a lot of integration that needs to be built to keep those two systems in sync, versus originating those types of changes and onboardings from within Salesforce. So these are some things that I wanted to ground, because we'll go into some details about account opening specifically within Financial Services Cloud next.
Okay. Did we want to highlight any specific integration apps that may be a good fit for this use case, or no, we could move on if not?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good comment, Nima. It really depends on the volume and the type of firm that is utilizing this. So for a small volume, you could use tools that are just point and click tools. There would be something like a Jitterbit or something like a Dell Boomi. But if you're talking about larger companies where you have to move massive amounts of data, you would be talking about tools such as Informatica or MuleSoft. Not that MuleSoft can't be used for some of the smaller use cases. In fact, the good thing about MuleSoft is that it is baked into Salesforce as a product now. Salesforce purchased MuleSoft a few years ago, and since they have made it very easy to integrate things like this custodial integration using MuleSoft, and made it very easy as a point-and-click tool from within Salesforce. So that's the one key difference that I've seen before, prior to MuleSoft being a standalone product, and now that it's been integrated into a Salesforce ecosystem. But again, I think, long story short, it depends on use case by use case and how much data we are moving. There's also cases where you can do this work without actually having a third-party integration tool, whereby you would directly use the APIs that are provided by these third parties. So FIS, as a core banking system, provides APIs that can be directly integrated with Salesforce, or somebody like Pershing also provides APIs that can be, those are REST-based APIs that can be provided to integrate these two systems. In fact, I've used both of those patterns, and again, depends on the use case.
Great. Are we ready?
Let's move on to the next section, if there is any, unless there are any questions. I don't see any right now. Give me 1 second, please. Somebody at the door.
Okay. In a moment here, we'll go over a demo as well of Financial Services Cloud. So I think we have a few more components here to discuss. I
believe this is the last slide, Nima, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So this is a typical onboarding process for an investment account. And what we have done here is kind of separated them out into two different buckets. And you will be able to see which functionalities are supported out of box from within Salesforce, and then things that would require customizations that are very typical in wealth management and asset management companies. So creation, on the left-hand side, we say creation of a household, parties or clients. That is an out-of-box feature within Salesforce Financial Services Cloud. In fact, that is one of the best features within Financial Services Cloud, is this ability to have this hierarchical structure, and we will see that in a minute, whereby you have households that own clients and the clients that have financial accounts under them, which is how they happen in reality. You would have you have the ability to update the owners or stakeholders. You can provide account details, the registration types of these accounts within Salesforce. You can also collect, with the latest release of Salesforce, additional components such as KYC, suitability, and upload supporting documents that you may want to. And lastly, there's a concept of action templates, which we'll talk about. Those are checklists that the account opening team can use for onboarding these clients. On the right-hand side, you would see things that you will not typically see in FSC or Financial Services Cloud, because those are very, very specific to investment accounts, brokerage accounts. And right now, Salesforce is not at that point where it has incorporated all of those details. But those two together actually form the real account opening process. In an account opening process, you will have IMAs that would need to be attached to the clients. You would have fee schedules, depending on how you manage those financial accounts. You may have different fee tiering schedules, depending on how much the assets under management are. And some of these IMAs can cover multiple accounts. Some of them covers one single account. So there is no one size fits all in case of an IMA. And same with fee schedules. They also goes together with it. Then there are other additional documents that are not currently supported in the base version, in the Financial Service Cloud version. But the right-hand side that I'm talking about, this is where our expertise comes into picture. This is where we understand the end-to-end business process, and we have done integrations and built these kinds of additional capabilities from within Salesforce Financial Service Cloud. You can see some other top line items that I will just discuss at a high level. Reg B, investment policy statements. Billing information is an interesting one, because many companies use fee schedules to then bill the clients. And how wonderful would it be if you could put those billing information within Salesforce and then have your billing systems feed directly from the data that is collected in these fee schedules. And we have done that before. So that is the actual account opening process. Now, there are some backend processes which are very important, but for the sake of this discussion, I'm not going to go too much into detail about it. But behind the scenes, there's operations and other staff that have to action these account opening forms, whether it might be approvals through wealth managers, through operational people. Those workflows are also kicked out to the back office that we have built that automate a lot of those. I would call them, they're off the system activities. They're not really captured in the system these days. Last one is funding. If you talk about an actual account opening, there's always a funding component. How are you funding that account, whether it's a bank transfer, whether you're doing an ACAT, or you're sending a wire or a check. Those components are also very specialized areas that we have done work with. Lastly, e-signatures is really big these days, whereby you can actually generate these account opening forms through Salesforce and a combination of additional third-party tools such as DocuSign, which will allow a seamless packaging of all the account documents within one package, and then send it through the system to the client and actually receive them back from the client, signed off, back into Salesforce system, and they will be marked correctly within the system. All within the bounds of compliance and regulations. Lastly, custodial integration. That is the key linchpin in the whole account opening process. Unless you are self-clearing, which there's only a few firms that do self-clearing, which have their own clearing systems, but most of the firms use a third-party clearing custodian that you would have to integrate with for an actual account to be open. And you would, where we have made a difference is we would just make those API calls through backend integration and generate those account numbers from the custodial systems and bring them back into Salesforce. So the key difference is the user doesn't have to leave Salesforce for all of these processes. Last but not least is the account maintenance, which we talked a little bit earlier, but address updates, making changes in multiple systems is a big hassle. If the way we work with our clients is we build these kinds of things within Salesforce. So you would update an address. Obviously, there are checks and balances for updating these kinds of things. If you're updating somebody's address, you would have to ask for an address proof, and there would be a workflow around that who approves that. And once all of that approvals are done, then how do you broadcast these updates to different systems that you're integrating with? So I think that's the last slide, Nima. I don't recall if I have anything else. Do you see anything else?
No. Well, don't think the next slide here.
Yeah, I'm going to go into the demo piece of it. Yeah, let's go to the next slide.
Sure.
So there are two types of setups in Salesforce that we can use for account opening and client onboarding process. One is what I call as a standard process, which involves households, clients, and financial accounts. The newer version of Salesforce has released what's called as OmniScripts, which sort of create a much more integrated flow for account opening. And we will see that in a second here. So Nima, I will have to share my screen here.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let me go ahead and stop and let you share.
Please let me know if you can see my screen. Hopefully.
We can.
Okay. So this is Financial Services Cloud. I'll go with the householding approach first, which is the traditional approach for account opening. So the way you would deal with this is you would create a person account first. So from within account setup, you click new, and you have a bunch of options here. And in this case, I'm going to show you how to create an individual. So what we are going to do is we're going to create an individual, and then we're going to link that individual to a household. So I'm going to click on an individual who's a prospect or a client. Prospecting, by the way, prospecting and lead management, those are totally different sets of functionalities within Salesforce. But here is the standard form. This can be customized to your needs. So you would have an account name, what is the status, whether you have a category or not, that can be customized. What is your market segment? What are the interests? So it collects a little bit of information about the client itself. And this is what I call client onboarding. This is where you actually input the client profile within Salesforce. The servicing model, how often do you want to have review sessions with your client? When is your last interaction? This is the KYC piece that I was talking to you about that was introduced recently, and it can be integrated with a third-party KYC system as well. Some billing information, etc. I'm not going to create this. I've already created one, Raymond Fleming here. I'm going to show you Raymond's profile here. So once you create this person account, you will see something like this. You will see over here account information. You will see address information. You'll see a little bit about the financial summary of this particular client. There's a bunch of client service options, which I have not filled out yet. But the key thing that I want to go over is all of these tabs here. So you have related parties, so related items that are related to this particular financial account. The financial accounts that this particular client holds. In this case, I have created a financial account for this particular client for a $1.2 million. That's a brokerage account. And you can see it here. If I want to see the details of this particular account, you will go over here. And this is the particular account that I've created. It tells you that it's an IRA client, it is an IRA account, it's an individual IRA. The owner, this is the owner of this particular account, which is the Raymond Fleming's that we had created earlier. The type of brokerage account, whether it's qualified or not qualified, what is the account balance, and some of the other portfolio information. And as and when we interact with this person, this profile gets richer and richer, and it gets populated with more and more data. And I'll show you one of the examples in a minute. And then we put it all together under a household. So you will see Raymond's household here. The key difference between a household account and a person is that you would see usually this hierarchy is like you have a household. Under a household, you have a person, and under a person, you will have these financial accounts. And this is how you would typically onboard clients in Salesforce. And if you have to open a financial account now, you would go to this financial accounts tab, you'll click new, and you will pick the type of financial account you want to open, whether it's a bank account, credit card account, general, insurance policy, investment account, or a loan account. In this case, if I want to open an investment account, I'll click next. And then it asks me for all of these details that are typical for an account opening process. What it doesn't do is some of the details that I'd shown you on the earlier slide. So it's a much more of a vanilla setup on the accounts, but I will show you an account that has been fully populated, which is going to my home page. I have another client, Adam's household. This one is more richly populated with data as it has been enriched through different sets of iterations. you will see financial accounts under here. And these financial accounts are a lot more in detail. So you will see checking account, savings account, brokerage account, mutual funds, and the balances are all up to date here from the custodial system. And the beauty of this is that Salesforce will roll up these financial accounts into that AUM, so you can observe and look at the AUM at a household level. There's an interesting concept here called relationships, and this gives you a visual picture of how this household is structured. So let's take a look at this household. So you have Adam's household. Under that, you have Adam as the primary member and Nigel Adams as a spouse, and then some kids and a trust account, a couple of trust accounts. And they are related to Simmons' household. And this could be like my household and my brother's household. And Salesforce, you just indicate that they are somehow related through a particular type of relationship. But gives the idea about this one is to give you a holistic picture of the whole account. And here you will see all of the details about each one of those accounts. One other interest. Sorry.
So I just had a quick question, Suhel. Are we gonna? So this looks like it's for wealth management, or would it also apply to banking as well?
It will apply to banking as well. Because you see here in the Adams household, we had financial accounts that were investment accounts, and we had bank accounts here as well. So if you see here, so you have bank accounts for checking, cash management, you even have insurance policies. This creates a client 360-degree view of the customer. So you would see all the assets and liabilities. You can also measure the liabilities from within here. And one other point that I want to show before I go to the Omni script, which is a latest version of Salesforce that shows how to open accounts, would be what we call as action plans. So in this setup, when you have to open an account, you would attach an action plan to it. And the action plan would be something like this. It would be basically a checklist. Give me 1 second. It would be basically a checklist that would indicate all the tasks that you would have to do for opening an account, such as collecting authorization party signers, running a KYC, creating an IMA, or some of the document checklists, such as verifying the driver's license, tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a special concept. So you can even attach a new action item for this. And these serve as reminders for back office folks to make sure these things are done when the accounts are opened. I'm going to quickly switch over to the newer version where we open these accounts. Well, it's called a discovery framework. So what you would do is you would launch this discovery framework, and it basically creates an account and a client onboarding at the same time. So what you would do is you would create, let's just say I would create a customer for Peter. put an address, put an email address, put a mobile phone number, a social security number. It's going to pick up something. You don't have to enter all of this, but in a normal account opening process, you would. And here is where it kind of generates some of the items that we saw on the right-hand side. But the key thing is that even though it has been introduced in the newer version, they are not integrated with any of the backend systems. It's just a data collection setup. So you can upload your driver's license or something like that if you have to. I can upload somebody's driver's license information here. It will take that document and get it set up. It will ask you what type of account do you want to open. Let's just say I want a saving account for do you need a checkbook? Yes or no? You would do all of these screenings, some sort of a KYC plus a combination of that and some of the questions that you would ask during a suitability. This can be customized, by the way. This is out of box how it looks like, but it can be customized to add questions, to add suitability, to add income verification. You can add a nominee here. Let's just say junior. And this would create then a flow that would ultimately, I'm not going to submit it because it doesn't go anywhere, but normally you would create this flow and it would create the client as well as the account setup. I'm going to have to stop sharing. But this is, I mean, just at a high level, this is a new functionality from within Salesforce Financial Services Cloud that can be used for an integrated client and account onboarding process.
Was this the new feature? How long ago was this released? This part?
This was just the summer. I think it was just the latest release. That's when this action Omni scripts were released.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's all I have. I wanted to leave some time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing. And if there are any questions in the chat, please let me know.
Yeah, Suhel, I know you and I were just at a client discussing this right now. So what have you seen in terms of like new changes recently for someone who hasn't maybe explored FSC in the last year? I saw the OmniScripts was something new. We were discussing that with a client just a couple weeks ago. Were there any major changes you think that, you know, because I know you wanted to talk about onboarding in general.
Yes.
Were there any updates?
There are a few other updates, and maybe I can show a slight version of that. One of them is this. Let me share my screen again. So this is how an OmniScript looks like. So I'm going to show a little bit of a technical side of it. For opening an account, you have a bunch of steps, and then you can customize those to the level of detail that we would like to see. The other important feature is the what I call is an onboarding. So this is more for a prospect and a lead conversion setup. So what you would do is you would come to this onboarding app, you would click on new, and you would enter a lead or a, let's say in this case, I'll add my Richard. So once I enter some of these details, you can save it and it creates sort of a wizard for you to then convert this, go through the document verification process. It's almost like a pre-onboarding flow You would go through risk screening, document validations, risk assessment, and it's a proper flow that has been built out. This is new in Salesforce for the latest version. And as you go through these different steps, you can then mark different documents that are getting added. You can have assessments. This is all very new. You can upload documents that are associated with these assessments. You can add your risk profile here. Basically, the whole 9 yards you can set up here. So this is also a new setup that has been that's kind of come up recently. The other part that I would say is financial goals. I don't know if many people use it, but there's financial goals there. You can look at creating goals. In this case, you would have Laura's saving fund, and they would have a detail about how much they want to save, what is their target, how are they progressing towards the target. Financial goals are relatively new. The other part that I thought was interesting is action plan template. I talked a little bit about this action plan template, but here, what you can do is, and this is really new, you can create a template for onboarding. You can say, okay, when an account onboards, here are the things I need to do. In this case, I have created a checklist for account onboarding. Then what you can do is you can attach this checklist to any new clients. So as a new client onboards, you can attach this template to that. In this, I have created 3 or 4 tasks for the client service rep. You got to schedule a meeting, you got to collect some documents, you got a physical signature, and then here are the documents that you would need to collect. This is customizable. You can add whatever details you want to, and then ultimately attach this to the client itself. What else? So in this case, I would say the arc is also pretty new. Here you can see a view of this client from a different perspective. What relationship members do they have? Who are the members of the household? It's a visual representation.
I believe
we can spend a lot of time, but I just went over at a very high level what some of those areas were.
Tara had a question.
Yeah.
You want to ask your question, Tara? Can you?
Yeah, sure. Suhel, thank you so much. Can you talk a little bit about OmniScript? Is this new to Salesforce?
Yes, it's a new functionality.
New functionality for Financial Services Cloud. Obviously.
Financial Services Cloud, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there's people out there who probably know this and can extrapolate that.
So give me 1 second. The way you would, I can't remember the name of the person that was asking that. Tara, was it Tara?
Yes. Yes.
So Tara, what you would do is by default, Salesforce will ship Financial Service Cloud with some basic templates. These are OmniScript templates. Then what you would do is, with the help of a firm like us, you would customize those templates to your onboarding needs. Where you saw those flows, where you had a client profile created, then you saw some of the servicing questions and some of the questions related to their suitability. That can all be customized. And that is where, a partner like us can help customize that. So you may have a business process. You would give us your business process. We would take a look at your business process. And most of the times it's a standard process. And we would then plug that into this OmniScript. Or if needed, we would have to integrate with external systems such as KYC. Some firms have KYC in their external system. They don't want to use Salesforce, which is fine. Then we can integrate with that. That can all be done with the OmniScript. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
We are close to time. I wanted to just make one quick announcement that if anybody here is interested to have a follow-up conversation, I understand that Salesforce is going to give us a bit of I believe they have confirmed they're going to give us a bit of a budget to provide some swag. So I think they're going to provide Salesforce sweaters or something with the Einstein. So like I'll follow up with more information on that to anyone who's joined via email as well. So I thought I would mention that before we wrap up. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add? Robert didn't have much airtime here, but I know he's also financial services cloud expert and former Salesforce, as we mentioned at the top, for those who weren't able to make it, former principal and solution architect at Salesforce on strategic accounts. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I know you've got knowledge on financial services cloud as well. So
I think Suhel covered it quite nicely. The real win is that a lot of this stuff comes out of box, and the functionality is there from the household kind of structure to all the integrations of the systems. The best part of it, you get access to the Salesforce platform, but then you already have all this pre-built stuff that you can leverage. I think the other part it's kind of also key to mention there is that when you do need a customization, because not every wealth management or every bank has it exactly the same, you can customize it for your specific needs, and that's a huge win. Because a lot of the other options you have out there are kind of pre-built and that's it. If it doesn't fit your need, you're stuck. Whereas with this, you do have that functionality that you can customize things, whether it's via templating or OmniScripts. There's just a lot of different varieties of customization that you can do based on your skill set and ability and needs, which is just a huge win from both getting it done in the first place and then ultimately modifying it or changing it for your needs. That's all.
Thank you very much, Robert. If there are no other questions, then I think we can give back a few minutes. And as I mentioned previously, thanks everyone for joining, and stay tuned for an email from us with an invitation for any questions that may have come up here that may address your specific needs. And I'm almost positive there will be some budget for some swag. So if anyone's looking for a cool winter polo or sweater, we'll find out shortly.
And I think, Nima, the other thing that I wanted to add was that this is not everything. We can only cover so much in such a short amount of time. So we went really fast. But if folks are interested, we can have one-on-one sessions with them and kind of go through in a lot more detail. This was just to show you a preview of what is available and how it can be leveraged in today's world.
Great. All right.
And our contact information will be sent out in the email, and we are happy to set up some follow-up calls after that.
Right. Yeah, good point. There's so much to cover in this space, and we just picked one of the many topics, and we'll have a follow-up subsequent webinars on other topics in the coming months as well. So there'll be another major topic like this coming up hopefully next month. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for joining, and we'll hopefully talk to you all soon. Thanks to all the panelists as well, Robert, Suhel.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.